Termites, what are we doing? It's night 16. This book's going to be short. What are we going to next? How about George Jones? See how I keep throwing that out there? Seeing if anybody will want it. If not, open to suggestions. It can't be hard, though. It has to be fun. This is a little Christmas Cosmo I've made myself with what? Carolina Reaper vodka, which is spicy. And look, it's got the palm tree, like the South Carolina flag, which I think it's the greatest flag, state flag of all. I love that flag. And I really miss Charleston. It's one of my favorite cities in America. That New Orleans, and not really open. Not for the fun this lady likes to have. I was showing you guys my ornaments episode. This is a little boat. And what does it say? It says Aran right there. What is Aran? The Aran Islands in Ireland. Those are 3 islands off the west coast of Ireland. You can go out there and spend the night. And it's super crazy. Creepy crazy, good, weird crazy. I love it. Although I said to my sister, who'd been there before me, because she went to school there for a while, and she went with her class. She goes, I don't know. I thought it was really weird. You'll like it. But it was too weird for me. The people are strange. I said, well, I like strange. Well, then I looked up the hotel on the biggest island of the 3. None of them are that big. And the main hotel was what? Madigan's Hotel. So I said to my sister, you just called our kinfolk super strange. And I went out there and I met them. And Kevin was the guy who checked me in, and I have a nephew named Kevin Madigan. And then this is my other little Aran Island souvenir. Look, it's a little Irish sweater made from the Aran Islands. How adorable. It's so adorable. I loved it. Anyway, I try to get ornaments wherever I go. So then at Christmas, I can remember where I've been when I do the tree. All right, we're on chapter 12. Loretta Lynn, Still Woman Enough. For you nerds, that's page 98. We're just cruising right along. In 1963, Owen Bradley asked Ernest Tubb who he wanted to sing some duets with, and Ernest answered, well, I think I'd like to sing with that little girl that's come to town, Loretta Lynn. I about came unglued when Owen told me. I ran all over the second floor offices, a deck of records, whooping and a-hollering. Whooping and a-hollering. Finally, Owen said, there's people below you. You gonna fall right through that floor. I said, I didn't care. It was the greatest thing that happened to me in the music business. I come to town as an outsider who was resented by some. Patsy Cline's friendship made the difference in them first 2 years, but when Ernest Tubb picked me to sing with him, it pulled me clean inside. I don't really know what that means. Excited. When I was a little girl, I remember laying in bed listening to Rainbow at Night on the radio. That song was so pretty it made you cry. Mama would say, Loretta, if the music's gonna make you cry, I'm gonna turn off that radio. So I'd turn over and put my head under the covers so she couldn't see me. That's how much of an effect Ernest Tubb had on me. Singing with Ernest was the same as when I later recorded Patsy's songs. I wasn't sure I was up to it. I knew that no matter what I did in my whole career, I'd never measure up to that man. And the last time I ever sang with him, I felt just the same as I had the first. Don't get me wrong, I'm usually a pretty confident singer and writer, so I ain't putting myself down. But standing beside Ernest was like standing next to a monument. You know that? And you know what? Ernest Tubb is a monument in this business. I hope new fans don't overlook his music, because if you're looking at all-time country greats, he's right up there. I can honestly say I don't know that I've ever heard an Ernest Tubb song, but I'm going to get on the giggle machine and find one. I have a feeling it's a little probably too old-timey for me, but who knows. Do always appreciate the fact that Ernest treated me like a fine lady, and I appreciated the fact that Ernest never drank around me. Oh yes, Ernest was a drinker, just like a lot of them. One night on the bus, Ernest said, honey, I hope you never see me drunk. Well, Ernest, a lot of people has. They wrote has. I didn't just make that up. A lot of people has said you drink quite a bit. I said, Ernest nodded, and they tell me I'm an awful drunk, so I don't want you to see it. Dew was never once jealous of Ernest and the time we spent together both in Nashville on the road. They was great friends. Not drinking buddies, just great friends. That'd probably work out well for both of them. because it doesn't sound like dude's an easy drunk either. A lot of kicking indoors, throwing string beans, remember that? Maybe the two of them together, not so good. Ernest Tubb liked Loretta Lynn too. I guess he understood something about him. Dude's drinking would eventually kill him, but it was Ernest smoking that took his life. I like how that's just, well, you know, it's going to kill you. You just keep doing it, and it did. He developed emphysema, which is a disease that limits a person's ability to breathe. I could identify with that since I've seen so many coal miners with black lung disease when I was a kid. But Ernest kept working, even though it got harder and harder for him to breathe. Sometimes he was so winded after the song, he'd let the band play an instrumental so he could catch his breath. Ernest was really never the same after that emphysema got bad. He just couldn't sing as with much power, and he was tired all the time. Yeah, I could see that. If you can't breathe, it's probably tiring. But even when he was told that his condition was incurable, he kept on going. I'll never give up, he said once. As long as people will buy a ticket to come through the door to see me, I'll work. The heartbreaker of the music business is that people forget legends like Ernest. By the 80s, when he was sick, he didn't get invited to play the big concert halls very often or do the big package shows with the big stars. Instead, he played the honky-tonks where he started out. Well, doesn't everybody kind of end up back in a club? Somehow, kind of. That's the natural trajectory. Up, down. I guess maybe not some, but comedians. But we like the club, so we don't even care. Matter of fact, I saw Joan Rivers in New York at the West Bank Cafe. In the bottom, there's a Laurie Beachman Theater. It's only for there's only 100 seats. And that was right before she died. But she was great. It was very funny. And she didn't mind. The club's a club, an audience is an audience. Who cares? Every time after I saw Ernest in 1980, he looked worse, and every time I loved him more. He was behind so many firsts in my life. He was the first one who introduced me on his famous Midnight Jamboree at the Ernest Tubb record shop, still in Nashville, downtown on Broadway. In 1960, he was the first to introduce me to the Grand Ole Opry, and he was the first to ask me to record with him, even though I only had 3 hits at the time. Years later, I was playing Las Vegas, and I asked Ernest to be on the show with me. I surprised him and had the stage remodeled to resemble the Opry stage. Well, look at her pulling some tricks. That really touched him, and he told me that I was the only person he ever saw who never changed after she became famous. That really touched me. Finally, Ernest got where he couldn't talk, much less sing. Last year he cut his personal appearance schedule a lot. They put him in a Nashville hospital and then on a respirator. He died on September 6, 1984. I didn't go to his funeral. Why not? Mommy had died not much before that, and of course my son Jack Benny had died the same year. That was too much death, too often. I was grieved out. I guess you could do that. Ernest Tubb died broken in debt. Well, why? Cigarettes ain't that expensive. Not as much as drinking. So what happened there? An awful lot of folks, including me, would have had it different. But the man who'd helped so many careers just wouldn't take no financial help from nobody. Ernest asked me to sing with him in 1963. Was a big surprise, but it wasn't the biggest one I got that year. Biggest one when I found out I was pregnant again. There I was, my career on the verge of getting white hot. Duet partner to Ernest Tubb, concerts offering, coming in right and left, and I turned up expecting a baby. Well, you can still sing. I mean, it's not like you can't sing if you're pregnant. They're not asking you to go in a coal mine. I thought I was done with all that. Betty Sue, my oldest, was already in junior high, and suddenly I was fixing to have a baby in my life again. Just a baby. Not specifically who. Just a baby. Oops, the doctor informed me not 1 baby, but 2. What the fuck? I worked right until before the delivery. Yeah, see, you can do it. Me and Ernest recorded our best duets when I was 8 months pregnant. Me and Mr. Used to Be. I think I've heard of that song. Me and Mrs. Used to Be. And then another one, Our Hearts Are Holding Hands, and another one, Sweet Thing. But being that far along, I was real short of breath. Well, everybody in the studio was short of breath. And when we were recording, I remember how hard it was to get the high harmonies. Ernest wasn't no harmony singer, so I did all the parts myself. I stayed on the road until almost the last minute, too. Then, on the day they was born, I canned 38 quarts of bean beans. She's still canning her own green beans, hoping that dude don't come home drunk and throw them everywhere at people, through windows. Just crazy, man. It's a great story, though. Remember when you got drunk, threw string beans everywhere? Fucking asshole. Took me all day to can that shit. I didn't go buy them. It ain't Jolly Green Giant. Those are Loretta green beans. Sometimes it seems like I've spent half my life on the road. I have. And the other half having babies. I have not. And putting up beans. Nope, didn't do that either. It's always been a balancing act. Exactly. Do I can some beans, have a baby, or go sing in Chattanooga? Maybe you could can some beans on the bus. Now you do two things at once. I named the babies Patsy after Patsy Cline. That's nice. And Peggy after my sister Peggy Sue. That's nice too. My sister has twins. They're 11, and they're girls. And their grandma's name are Vicky, my mom, and then his mom is named Judy. And I said, how hilarious would it be if you named them Vicky and Judy? Because it sounds like it's from a cartoon from the 50s. Guess how well my idea went over? Not at all. They are not named Vicky and Judy. I thought it was funny. Oh, look, here comes Vicky and Judy. Just sounds like, throwback. So she has the twins. And then 9 days later, I was on stage in Germany. The package show lasted 6 weeks, and I bawled my head off every day. I was ready to quit the music business and take care of them babies. Even though I'd been on the road for the past 4 years, I'd always been home when my older children was babies. Leaving grade school age children is hard, but climbing on a bus or an airplane when you got babies less than 2 weeks old is much worse. So much worse, I can't describe it. Until the twins was born, we had first one babysitter and then another, watching 4 older kids. Dude's parents babysat with Patsy and Peggy for the first couple years until I hired Loretta Lynn as a housekeeper nanny. She moved in and took charge of the house, the 6 kids, and when she could, she got in charge of Doolittle Lynn. That's right, Gloria, bring a hammer down. Gloria still lives on a house on my property, and the kids love her like a second mama. This reminds me of Roseanne's joke, where she goes, my kids hate me. They're like, you are a terrible mother. You are never home. And I looked at them and I said, imagine if I would have been home, how fucked up you'd be. I thought Rosario taught you better than to talk to me like that. Made me laugh every time she did that joke. Imagine if I'd been home. Because we all know Roseanne definitely can be a little crickety. She moved in, took charge, blah, blah. I often wish I'd had a stable babysitting situation with the older kids, because even if they couldn't have their mama home, they should have more stability. All that moving around we done in the early days bothered Betty Sue, maybe more than the rest of the kids. Still, she had her some fun as a kid. She loves to remind me how loyal Daddy was to country music. Every time she'd start playing a Beatles record, Doolittle would say, you remember that it's country music that puts food on this table, little girl. And then I would have said, well, how about you stop throwing string beans all around the goddamn house, Daddy? Huh? Them a valuable green bean. I love green beans, though. I've been pissed if he'd ruined them all. The older girls remember back when we was living in Goodlettsville. That's outside of Nashville. Dude was always after him to get outside and play, not to mope around the house watching television. Of course, what he doesn't know was that, according to them, they wasn't just out there riding horses or playing hide and seek or softball. A lot of time they was sneaking cigarettes and chewing bubble gum to cover up the tobacco breath. Me too. Worst thing them girls could do, in Dude's opinion, was color their hair and paint their faces or their nails. Speaking of which, I painted mine red and green. I never paint my nails, but it's Christmas and I was totally bored. And now I think I like it. She come walking in one time when Betty Sue put streaks in her hair. Do had a fit, like to had a fit. Streaks, not highlights. Streaks, like a skunk. You got a streak in your hair. What the hell? Do like to had a fit. She come walking in with her streaked hair and sunglasses. Dude wouldn't speak to her for 3 days. I'm sure she didn't mind. I'm okay with Do not talking to me right now. How about that? When Betty Sue was a younger teenager, she decided she was in love and told us she was getting married. Oh, I tried every way I could talk her out of it, but like I said, when Betty Sue dug her heels in, she couldn't be budged. And the one thing she tried to hold over my head is I'd done the same thing. Right, but Loretta was in a holler with no options. Betty Sue living in a big house now with a lot of help and money. Mama's making good money now. Have options. I worry myself sick over Betty Sue. And the times when she needed money, I called Gloria and try to get some slip through to her. Doolittle wasn't much help when any of his kids was having marital problems. He was just one of them, you made your bed, now lie in it, parents. Jack, Benny, Ernest, Ray, and Sissy were younger than around the time Betty Sue got married, and their lives were still about being kids. It wasn't until later, till they started having their own troubles. Yep, I could see that coming. Unlike the older kids, the twins was raised in show business from the very start. Whenever I played the Opry, Dude brought them along. He'd take them over to Tootsie's Orchid Lounge, another bar, still on Broadway, if you'd like to go to Tootsie's. Across the alley from the Ryman, they'd sit there and wait for me to sing, Dude to finish his beer, surrounded by Tootsie's regulars like Roger Miller, Willie Nelson, Farron Young, and little Jimmy Dickens. I think when I did a show at the new Grand Ole Opry with Ron White, Salute to the Troops, they gave me little Jimmy Dickens' dressing room. And I gotta say, I didn't know who that was. Because once again, I'm getting a D- in my country music history. Now, I would have known Roger Miller, and I would have known Willie Nelson. I would not know Farron Young, and I did not know little Jimmy Dickens. And John Panette goes, they put you in there because you're short. I said, probably. Whatever. Later years, they'd go back to Tootsie's Lounge to play their own shows and get a career going as the Lynn's. They're good entertainers, too. In fact, I'd like to tell them if they just let me run their careers, they'd be as big a star as anybody out there right now. Huh. I'm going to have to look that up. The twins sing? I'll have to giggle that, too. Note to self. Them girls became Dude's babies. Maybe it's like when a man gets married a second time, he thinks he's got a second chance of being a good father. Sometimes the first wife will grit their teeth because he seems to treat the second family so much better. That does happen often. Sometimes I gritted my teeth, and I know my 4 older did too. Doolittle never even came close to being as hard on them twins as he was on the older 4. In some ways, Dude spoiled them girls right, and yet in other ways, he was thoughtful about their raising. He was determined that they wasn't ever going to think they got special treatment because their mother was a recording star. Come to think of it, he made sure they didn't. They went to public school in Waverly, Tennessee. They dressed in inexpensive clothes, and they didn't get every derned. They wrote out darn. They didn't get to buy every darn thing they saw. Peggy says their lives were pretty normal till around 1980 when Coal Miner's Daughter was being made. One of the first things that happened was that kids at school started a buzzing. Apostrophe A, next word, buzzing. Started a buzzing by who was staying at our house. Carrie! Well, of course they was referring to the Stephen King horror movie Carrie starring Sissy Spacek. My girls never even heard of that movie. After Coal Miner's Daughter, life became more like a zoo out at the ranch, but I'll tell you that later. All right? Meanwhile, my world could get a zoo-like on the concert trail. Okay, that sounds like a good place to stop right there. Her ranch is still there. I've driven it to it. I've never gone to it. I should make a point of that. It's between Memphis and Nashville, somewhere on the highway. And I did go up to the Loretta Lynn Diner. It was closed at the time. I don't know how often it's open. That was 2 years ago, probably. So if you're ever driving, I believe it's on Highway 40 through Tennessee, you can stop and see Loretta's ranch. And I believe she still lives there. And I believe some of the kids, maybe it's the twins. Somebody out there runs a joint. I think one of them boys is still out there too. The one died, the other one. I've heard a story about him I won't repeat from a good source. I'm just going to say he's probably a lot of fun, but a little nutty. It's just a personal assertion. All right, termites, it's getting close to Christmas. Are you excited? You should be. It's fun, right? Hanukkah's over, I believe. Lou doesn't really care. He's my inside scoop on the holiday thing for the Jewish world. I go to Lou with all questions or observations. He's not really that into it. When I lived in Los Angeles, though, there were some Hasidic Jews that put menorahs that lit up on top of a giant station wagon, and they drove around Los Angeles honking, and their car lit up blue and stuff. I thought it was fabulous. Lou said it was over the top. I'm like, yeah, that's why it's fabulous. Shoo, how often do you see a menorah-topped vehicle blinking, Lou? All right. Put yourselves to bed. Get yourself in your sheets. Now a lot of people told me no on the flannel sheets, so I'm torn. You know what? I did order that one. It hasn't come yet. So we'll see. And that's what we got for tonight's episode. Termites, put your sheet up. You're a worthy termite. Chubby termites, you're just as worthy. Matter of fact, you're more worthy because there's more of you. Bring that sheet up. Close your eyes. Ready? Night-night, termites.